Welcome to the Page One Podcast, a podcast featuring a variety of guests and thought leaders on topics ranging from digital marketing, sales channel strategies, influencer marketing, best-in-class product launches, and all the details about how to accelerate sales. Now, here's your host, Luke Peters.
Thanks for joining us on the Page One Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Peters of Newer Appliances and Retail Band Digital Strategy Agency. We're now in a coronavirus world, and I know that's on everyone's mind, so I'll adapt all interviews to ensure that you, the listeners, are getting the most out of this podcast. This episode is sponsored by Retail Band, and we can give you, the owners, a blueprint on how to grow your digital sales, either direct-to-consumer or via channels like HD, Wayfair, and Walmart. If you're interested, find me on LinkedIn or email me at luke@retailband.com. In this episode, you're going to learn from entrepreneur Steve Greenspon on how to differentiate without a wow product and how he acquired 5 companies in the past 5 years. Steve is the founder and CEO of HoneyCan International. He's a leading provider of home storage, organization, garment care, ethnic cuisine preparation, and other housewares under the HoneyCan, Joyce Chen, and Perch brands. He's a member of the executive committee and incoming treasurer of the International Housewares Association. Steve holds an MBA from the Kellogg School of Management and Northwestern University, and he's recognized as an Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year finalist in 2015. Steve, welcome to the Page One Podcast.
Truly an honor to be here, Luke. I'm a big fan of the podcast. I know that you normally only have successful people and smart people on here, so I really appreciate you making an exception this time. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate your humor, but audience, check out Steve's LinkedIn profile. You see he's done quite a bit. We're going to talk about all those things today, and he's got an amazing company and has been moving quickly with all those acquisitions, but there's so much more we're going to talk about. But before we do, you guys sell a wide variety of products, Steve. Why don't you briefly describe for the audience kind of what you guys do and sell so they kind of better understand?
Oh, perfect. HoneyCan, it's, as you mentioned, primarily home storage and organization, everything from coat hangers, shelving units, shoe racks and garment racks, storage for just about every room in the house. We get into laundry care products, and it's primarily ironing and drying racks, and then different laundry care items. Through acquisition, we got into a wide range of baking stones and baking products. And then most recently, we've gotten into, we acquired the Joyce Chen brand, which is a lot of ethnic cuisine prep things like woks and tortilla makers and a variety of items in that regard.
Perfect. Okay, and that helps. And I guess before we get to some of these questions, why don't we start with coronavirus and COVID-19? And we're recording this in early June. It probably won't launch until later July or early August. But I'm sure we'll still be dealing with COVID then. Right now, the world is starting to open up slowly. But why don't you talk about how that's impacted your company?
Of course. So from the start, we were very proactive. We created a committee early on and just thought of different scenarios and how we were going to deal with this. And we started that really in late February. The health and the safety of our staff and ensuring that they know that the company is concerned about that. And also, as best we could, just kind of ensuring the continuity of our warehouse operations, because that would then allow everybody to keep their jobs and maintain the stability of the company as a whole throughout this. We moved our entire office team to a virtual more than a week before the state of Illinois, where our headquarters is located, went into a shelter-in-place environment, and we had everything well-placed for that in advance. Our entire staff had laptops. We had a real strong internet connection at the office, a lot of cloud-based items. We had already started training in Microsoft Teams, and we were well prepared for that. And really, that went off without a hitch. We moved our warehouse team to all of the recommended guidelines and maintaining that stayed open. And really, we ensured we were transparent in the communication that as long as we could keep from having an outbreak and getting people sick, we would be able to guarantee folks with jobs. We obviously, masks are a requirement, the social distancing. We put the different teams in different entrances and exits, separated them with washrooms. different washrooms, different break rooms, and just did our best. And then we also gave everybody strong reminders about staying safe when they're outside of our environment. We gave our entire warehouse team a $2 per hour pay raise, and the management team a raise as well, just to let them know how much we appreciate them coming in, and also to ensure that we could maintain that staff and continue to get new people as our sales have grown over that time. When we've had positive tests, and I think we've had about 5 positive tests, we haven't had one for going on almost 3 weeks now. But we do the contact tracing. We're probably overly safe in that regard and sending people home with pay, just to ensure that everybody's safe. One semi-permanent change that we made is that we're going to be going to a virtual office environment for the foreseeable future.
Wow. And how much office space did you have, Steve?
So our warehouse and office are in the same building. I'm going to say that our office is close to about 10,000 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
We've got roughly 60 people in the office, and it's been going very, very well. We're able to maintain communication real well there. So, we're going to maintain an office always. And for those that want to, ironically, for those that want to have a quieter environment in their own home, that want to go to the office, they can, or we'll have meeting space for teams that want to get together to have meetings. But we're giving folks the options, and each team is probably going to be a little bit different. But just to work from home is whenever they want to and have that flexibility.
Wow.
With that regard.
So Steve, so this is so interesting because we're talking about our back to work plan and we haven't really finalized it because I figure there's no rush. We're like you, it's operating good remotely. And just like you also, we have the office in the warehouse, the main warehouse with the office attached to it. What do you think is going to happen? Just a quick prediction. Do you think 20% of the people are going to end up working in the office? Do you think you're going to have like 1 day a week management shows up, or 2 days a week so that you guys can have some meetings? Or just curious your quick thoughts on how you think it's going to play out.
Yeah, so typically our leadership team has always met once a week. In a formal setting, and then casual far more often. We changed that to twice a week. We're going to continue that. One meeting is scheduled for 20 minutes. The other one is for an hour. We'll maintain that and just give people the option to either be there in person or to do it, through Teams. I would say, and the feedback that we've gotten, our folks are probably going to be working primarily from home, and then just if they need to do something specific at the office. For customer reviews, we've been doing those at the office. We set up a nice showroom with lighting and added a little bit of technology for that. And the customer reviews have been very, very good remotely. We've been able to have a lot more products there. We've been a lot better rested for the meetings as opposed to doing all the travel and everything. We've been able to have a lot more people from our end involved in the meetings because they're remote, including like product development or maybe somebody from logistics if they can add something. And so in that regard, it's been going real well.
Wow. And
to answer the question, maybe, I don't know, I'm going to guess 20% on any given day, maybe even less probably.
Yeah. And let's talk quickly about those customer reviews. So this would be, are these going to be only for bricks and mortar, or are these even for new product launches that are going to your .com retailers and marketplaces?
It's been primarily for brick and mortar that we've been doing this. And, these are the regularly scheduled reviews that retailers are having that are always in person. And then the COVID environment is forcing these to be virtual. And obviously they need to continue to have the reviews. It's been fantastic in every way. Obviously you want to have the relationship and have the shaking of the hands and the looking at the different facial expressions and being there, and there's nothing that they can replicate that virtually. However, we've just found that we've been able to prop the items and been able to present a lot more items, and we found the communication has gone very, very well in these virtual meetings.
Great.
Although we certainly can use them for presenting new products for e-commerce retailers as well.
Yeah, that's a huge advantage to have that set up. Wow. So, I mean, that's good feedback on how you guys have kind of navigated COVID. And I think it's interesting. You set up a committee. I know you're a really organized guy, and good feedback there from the very beginning. Set up a committee and get more people thinking and planning. So it's not all on your shoulders, but you guys were really thorough and super complete explanation there. Kind of moving on to your business, just to give, some context to everybody listening. You talked about, your HQ and 60 folks inside the office. Can you share total employees, total warehouse size, and just to, maybe any details about the departments that you think might be useful to listeners?
Yeah, of course. So we're based in suburban Chicago. It's a 500,000 square foot facility. There we do our warehouse fulfillment. We also have a lot of customers that buy from us on a direct import basis. Ship a lot of LTL as well as direct drop ship to consumer. We've got about 120 folks in full-time positions in the warehouse. And then we also have staff in China, Taiwan, and Vietnam, probably about 30 people in Asia. And that includes merchandisers and quality control and factory audit staff. We have folks that work directly with our retail customers that have offices in Asia directly and just kind of expediting orders and doing all those sorts of things. We have engineers there working on product quality as well and design.
Wow. So if I'm putting this together, so it's 120 warehouse. Is that also an additional 60 in the office, or is it 120 total in the whole building?
120 plus 60.
Wow.
Plus 30.
Yeah. So over 200. That's in a massive facility. How close to downtown are you guys?
So as the crow flies, as the saying goes, I want to say that we're probably about 15 miles straight west of downtown. You can see the Chicago skyline from the front of our facility and certainly from the roof.
Awesome. Okay, cool.
So we're not too far from O'Hare Airport.
Oh, got it. Yeah. And I'm there every year for the show, except this past year, which is unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
But it's good to know you're that close. What about sales mix? So how much are you able to talk about percentages of in-store versus online? And then specifically, how much of that direct to consumer on a website, if any at all?
Yeah, of course. So a very small percentage is sold direct to consumer from our website. It's not an area that we focused on in the past. We certainly have all the items set up for those consumers that want the direct relationship. We also use that as kind of a tool to communicate to consumers a number of areas about the products, the specifications, features and benefits and things like that. But it's not an area that we choose to sell a lot of through right now. In terms of mix, it's so pre-COVID, we were probably maybe a little bit over 50% through e-commerce versus brick and mortar retailers, and that includes omni-channel. We'll break it down if there's an omni-channel retailer. Between what we do on their website versus what we do through the stores. Of course, this year with the COVID environment and so many brick and mortar retailers being shut down, the last few months, it's probably been about 75% e-commerce.
Yeah, that's awesome. And great. Congrats for being able to pivot. And what's been your best growth channel online? I'm assuming, Amazon's probably cranking right now, but anybody else stand out or any other channel stand out?
Yeah, it's been so e-commerce, essentially anything with the .com at the end has been performing really well. The exception being, not surprisingly, those retailers that are selling B2B primarily. We'll say the major office retailers and maybe the leading MRO retailers as well, or I shouldn't say retailers, but the leading MRO suppliers have been a little bit slower than most. And we're investing kind of where we see the growth. And this is something that we've kind of espoused and within the company is invest in those retailers that are growing, invest in those retailers that we think will be around in 5 years, and those that want to partner with us because the returns will be much stronger. It's easier opportunities to partner with retailers that might be having their own challenges for a variety of reasons, but it costs you resources, and there's certainly an opportunity cost to deal with folks that you're not going to see a long-term return on them. So we're really putting resources behind those retailers that are growing.
Yeah, and why don't we dive into that a little bit? I guess we don't have to mention names. We know who the big retailers are, and I'm sure it's I'll speak for you, but it'll be like an Amazon or a Wayfair or a Target or there's going to be a lot of these .coms.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And what specifically, I know it sounds like an obvious question, but I think maybe there's some nuances or fun bits of information. What specifically does investing in a retailer look like for you guys?
So it's it's so many ways that we didn't even realize until we broke it down. It's certainly the time of the salesperson and pursuing the account. If you're designing products for them, then all the resources involved in that. There's hard costs involved with the setting up the EDI connection, and then with the EDI funds that are involved there. If the retailer doesn't pay their bills on time, then we've got a credit department and an AR department that has to spend time with them. And if they're taking deductions that may not always be justified, then there's time involved in that. And it's just creating these efficiencies.
But them taking deductions that aren't authorized, that never happens in this business, huh? Why would you need to worry about that?
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? And I don't know if brands let it go, or if retailers feel like they're pulling a smart one, or if they or if maybe they don't realize that it's happening, but it's a cost, and it needs to be figured into the overall relationship when it happens.
Exactly.
And I want to think the best of people and companies, and that they're not doing it on purpose. But it's something that has to get figured into the cost.
Yeah.
You know, if it happens consistently, obviously you want to communicate it and let them know that it's a frustration if it's not justified.
Yeah.
And certainly there's no company that's perfect that I'm aware of where they're not going to have compliance charges that they don't deserve. But we've also seen instances where it's just abusive in that case.
And we've seen the same. And but you're right though. Communication is really key. And I think once that happens, and then it's like whatever the issue is identified, it usually can stop it. Not everything though. Sometimes there's just crazy post audits that come in without any backup. But yeah, it definitely pays. And I've learned the hard way, and I'm taking too long to learn this, but it definitely pays to have a great accounting team, strong controller, strong systems. Because we have to, they're doing their job, and we have to do our job. And while we're building the partnership, everybody's got to be pretty transparent about those challenges along the way too.
Absolutely. Something that we started doing, and it's the most obvious thing in the world that we weren't doing, and I don't know how many companies do it, is we're doing customer profitability by SKU.
Yep.
So you start with the sell price, and then you go your COGS by SKU, and you then figure in what the agreed upon allowances are, and if there's freight involved and EDI involved, and if there's compliance charges involved, justified or not, and you break it down as detailed as you can, and you might find that you've got a customer that you think holistically is very profitable, but you've got SKUs in there that you're better off not selling to them or tweaking the pricing. Or you might find that you've got accounts that you thought were really profitable that maybe they aren't. It's
so key.
And we've learned a ton of information through the breakdowns.
Yeah, there's a great book. It's called Islands of Profit in a Sea of Red Ink. And it's interesting because in the book, and it's done by these really high-level auditors of Fortune 100 companies. And sometimes what you just said is really difficult to do with most ERPs. And even with large companies in the book, their methodology is that you literally people have to go to individual transactions and just work out all of the details you just said. Because oftentimes systems can't spit that out. So they got to literally, do it kind of manually, but they can just do it for a small sample size, and then you can, apportion that out. But yeah, that's super important. So let's move on to one of my favorite subjects, time management. And I can just tell the audience, this is definitely a strength of yours. And just so the audience knows, Steve, so I looked at this in your LinkedIn profile. You're on 3 boards. You're running a large company, and then funny enough, you responded to emails to me like at all hours of the day and night. So would you mind sharing like your best 1 or 2 time management secrets?
Yeah. So as much as I can, and I don't know secrets, but I try to keep things as simple as possible and not to clutter things. And that's both physically and in terms of time or intellectually, and also because I have kind of the mindset of like, it is this, it is that. I've got my closet organized in such a way that I could easily find whatever I need, and I don't complicate things. And if something doesn't fit or is worn, I just get rid of it. Donate it to charity right away, so it's not cluttering things. I keep my desk as uncluttered as possible. I try to keep my inbox as uncluttered as possible. I might have some undiagnosed condition that just drives me nuts. Whenever there's clutter out there, I try not to buy anything unless I feel like I really need it, because otherwise I go nuts with having things that I just consider clutter. So just keeping things simple and just getting in patterns and having consistency and just as you mentioned with the warehouse, just avoiding extra steps and extra things to do. If I somehow get on an email list, I'll immediately unsubscribe if it's not something that I want, rather than having to delete it each time and the seconds involved in that. And, try to organize my morning routine, go here, do this, go there, do that, leave the house, grab this. And, even something like if I leave my keys in different places, that's time that I consider to be a waste. So I always make sure that I know exactly where everything is.
Yeah. And that's just overall seem really organized and just thoughtful about planning. So that seems to be how I would summarize that response. But I mean, still, you've got you're running a large company. By the way, I want to move on to some other questions, but quickly, what do you see, obviously CEO and founder of a large company, and you guys have made all of these acquisitions, and we'll briefly talk about those, but what is your main role and what's your, where are you mostly spending your time?
So, and it's evolved over the years, and it's still evolving. Today, I am so thrilled with my spot in the company today, and just being a founder. And on day one, we literally had 3 staff members, including myself. And so, so I've been involved, and I've had the chance to be involved with every aspect of the company. Everything from doing certain accounting functions and marketing, and certainly business development and product development and sourcing, and I've learned and grown from those experiences. Today we have such a phenomenal team, especially our leadership team, but including I would say everybody, and we've been very, very curated, if I can use that term, for hiring and maintaining and training the staff, that I'm able to be more strategic than I've ever been in my life. And just kind of looking at future plans and the budgets and forecasting and growing and doing things that are really adding great long-term value. And I really, really enjoy that. And if need be, I can still step in and provide some tactful guidance, if I can call it that, wherever necessary. But I'm at a point where I really love, and I'll use that term, love our team, and I'm so excited by the people that are there.
And how long did it take you from founding to how many employees? Right now, you're a little bit over 200. And how many years and how many employees were you at? Were you were able to step away? You kind of made that transition where, not step away, but you're always, I'm sure it's a transition, like every year is a little bit better, but where you literally could just work on the business and the strategy. Is that more recent?
Yeah, very recent. So started the company in January of 2008. And this has been very, very recent. And in many ways, it's my own evolution, but in many ways, it's also just, having the right people, that would allow me to do that. And also where I could be in a position where I could trust and feel that way about the staff. Where I could, I guess, emotionally step away, and I feel good about that. But probably if you ask our leadership, I get involved in too many things still, but I'm much better at it than I was in the past.
Don't worry, I get blamed for that too. So we're probably very, very alike in that. But how can you not? When you love a company and you started it and you've been there for everything, so it's kind of in the DNA.
It's a founder syndrome. Yep.
Exactly. So listen, before moving on, wanted to give IHA, the International Housewares Association, a quick shout out here. Obviously, you're an active board member. It's a great organization. Anything else to kind of share in case folks are listening and they don't know about IHA? Maybe they go to hardware, but they're not going to IHA. What else could you say?
So website is housewares.org. It's a not-for-profit, and it's the association for brands of housewares companies. They put on the annual show in Chicago in March that you mentioned. Great opportunity for brands to get in front of retailers, and these are all the major retailers in housewares as well as independents, e-commerce. Every retailer that's in housewares attends that show and looks forward to that show. It's also a great place to meet influencers, and the press as well also have a great presence there. The association also has great networking opportunities through an annual meeting called Chess in October in Chicago. We'll see if it happens this year, where they have great speakers, and most importantly, it's great networking with other housewares companies. We all have similar challenges, similar opportunities, and just to be able to talk with other people and meet other people and build those relationships for active communication is priceless. There are core groups, which are regularly scheduled meetings of housewares companies where you just get together and talk about important issues of the day. And I always learn a ton from all those meetings. Obviously the bigger companies on the meetings are really innovative and talk about things that are happening with them. But then many of the smaller companies are so scrappy and they're so involved in the day to day and in the weeds on things. I learn a ton from them as well. So it's just great. It's great, and plus everybody in the industry is if you're selling housewares products, chances are you're a pretty nice, down to earth person.
Yeah,
and I really enjoy the industry.
It's a great show. If you're not attending, you need to attend. And for those that are attending Housewares, and a lot of folks may not know about Core, and you definitely got to look into that. I never knew about Core. I've attended Housewares shows for probably, 15 years or something like that. And just until a couple of years ago, I had no idea Core even existed. And it's like it's like a typical mastermind group if you're in EO or Vistage or something like that. But it's obviously housewares companies, and there's a mediator, and it's really a great value offer that Housewares puts together. So I definitely recommend everybody look up Core and the additional events that Steve mentioned there. We'll have it in the show notes.
And I'll say that this is being a member of Housewares is the best value that you could make for your company. Core and Chess and a Core is no charge for members, and I think the membership, depending on the size of your company, is a few $100 a year.
Yep.
So just tremendous value.
Cool. All right, so let's move along here. And again, just looking at your past experience, in 2007, you exited LDR Industries. So you were over there and you helped grow this significantly to an EBITDA to 8 digits. And just wanted to ask what you learned from that exit. Obviously, business owners listening to this podcast are always kind of contemplating an exit. Great to learn from your experience here and maybe what you might have changed.
Yeah, so I can probably pass along some good lessons on what not to do. It wasn't. I was a 1/3 owner of the company. I don't have. I got there. My two partners were living full time in other states. The company had been basically break even, marginally lost for years before I got there. I was the operator, the full-time operator, made some kind of common sense decisions, set up some processes. We did some great things, got ready for the exit. And I learned right about the time of the exit that my partners, without my knowledge, were, I guess I should use the term, allegedly doing some unethical, immoral things that I was not aware of. As a result of the due diligence from the prospective sale to the PE firm, the deal got nixed. I came to them shortly thereafter and said, we got to end this partnership. Here's a number significantly less than what the PE firm had offered us, and said I could be a buyer at this number, I could be a seller at this number, but we just need to end this thing. And they ended up buying me out, and I couldn't have been happier. I didn't want to be a part of a company with. So I was leaving regardless. So I was just able to get a little bit of money out of that and use that as the startup for HoneyCan do.
Wow, and quickly. Amazing story there, but how did you turn it around? Could you put that, I know you mentioned processes and common sense things, but anything specific? It's always great to hear like a specific story that, yielded a lot of profit.
Yeah. So one of the challenges there was, I don't know, I'll say, so that was a company in plumbing and bath, selling to home centers primarily and the hardware channel. and they're just things like updating the packaging, that hadn't been updated for decades. To give it a fresh new look, getting answers to customers and to the sales staff, as simple as that sounds, that we had been losing so many opportunities, because we just couldn't get answers in a timely manner because my partners were more or less working part time, but of course they still wanted the power to have everything go through them. Bringing in new products, heaven forbid, getting rid of bad products, heaven forbid, and just it was very much kind of a back to basics approach.
Yeah, makes sense.
Not anything exciting or innovative, but just very much a basics. And by the way, within a few years of my leaving, the company went bankrupt.
Oh wow. Wow, what a story. Now, then, so you use that capital to start HoneyCan in 2008. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah.
Great. And then along the way, I mean, there's so much to talk about, but along the way, just because we wanted to feature this portion of it, you purchased several companies. You guys acquired or rolled up several companies. Why don't you kind of give us what you learned from that experience? What can people avoid in the future maybe, and what may have worked really well for you? And then also how you identified those companies.
So the identification has been almost exclusively word of mouth. There's some great brokers that work very closely with the housewares industry and others that are outside the industry. So an interesting fact is that roughly 85% of the housewares industry, which is essentially the people that attend the housewares show or exhibit at the housewares show, are less than $10 million in revenue, and of that, a very large percentage are under 5 million. So these are companies, generally speaking, they're not large enough to really scale and get bigger. They're not large enough to get the attention of private equity investors. And for the most part, there aren't a lot of strategic acquirers within the industry, especially for companies that are in that size range. Often these companies they really have a succession plan. So there's a lot of opportunities. So, and our primary interest is, we're looking for great products that we can expand into. And then we're looking for kind of that existing customer base that we can then roll up. And that's the value of the acquisition. We can more or less often bring them into our platform and our expense structure. We'll still have the variable expenses, but we can often absorb their fixed costs into our structure there, and then just work on growing these companies. Maybe they weren't very successful with e-commerce before that, and we can use that as an opportunity to grow. Maybe they weren't successful in marketing or other areas. Just use that and invest in those areas for brands. We'll work with the existing ownership and find out what their goals are, and kind of customize the deal around that. If they're looking for, they feel that there's maybe missed opportunities that they just couldn't get to because of lack of capital, then we can work with them on a tail and get payments to them as the products grow for a period of time. Or if they're looking for basically a lump sum at closing and go off in the sunset, then we're certainly amenable to those options as well.
Wow. And are you like financing that, yourself through like an ABL, or are you using SBA, or is it just kind of vary on each deal?
Yeah, it varies by the deal, but it's the deals that we've done so far have been through our existing revolver with the bank. Although for larger deals, we've gone down the path of alternative options for financing, but we haven't needed them in the past deals.
Yeah, and then and that's super interesting and good on you. That means you're running an incredible business just to be able to roll those up, using your current ABL and financing that you have. What is, do the owners usually stay on? Do they not stay on? Of course, I'm sure that one varies by company as well.
Yeah, so in the past, we have not had any ownership stay on, and that's been primarily by their own choice. We've had in every deal we've had agreements with them for a short-term consulting fee, because there's always things that come up, post closing, in a variety of ways, about customers, about vendors, about products and things, and we just want them kind of on call for a period of time to answer questions. But it's never been a permanent thing.
And in the future, are you going to continue to do this? Has this been something that you're going to continue with, or are you guys going to kind of take a pause on it?
No, that's we see this as a great growth opportunity for the future. Something we learn something new on the process every single acquisition that we've done, and we just see this as a great opportunity for the future in terms of growth.
Great. And last question on this: do you have an internal team that this is their job, or is it just kind of when a deal happens, some folks will come from ops and maybe finance and they'll get together and run the deal? Or is it kind of more specialized since you're doing, quite a few of them, it looks like?
No, it's been with our existing teams, and each team kind of plays a part in it. Certainly our CFO and our finance team is very active with this, just in putting together the models and what it looks like. Our product development team and our product management team obviously spend a lot of time getting all the data into the system, and often with the companies of this size, they don't have all the data on the products and the customers and the Chinese vendors or Asian vendors that we normally have. So there's a lot of filling in the blanks in that regard. Packaging changes and marketing, and every team is involved in the process.
Wow. Well, thanks for all those details. I think it's definitely a valuable nugget there for folks that are, even if you're not in the houseware space, if you attend the hardware show and that's your category, it's just back to the original statistic, that Steve brought up. 85% of these companies are under 10 million, and then a significant portion of those even under 5 million. So there's a lot of companies out there, a lot of them probably with a lot of potential, but they're just not big enough to be of interest to PE groups and maybe even other groups. So I guess it presents a nice opportunity, and you guys are taking advantage of it. And thanks for sharing a little bit about that.
Oh yeah. Something I'll say is that, and I believe this, but it was said in half jest, is that it takes it's more difficult to make an acquisition of a $5 million company than a $50 million company, and that's because you've got somebody who feels very emotional about their company, and this is their livelihood, and they just and they want to make the best deal, and are they doing the right thing, and also just they don't have the data set for the transition, and they don't have, I guess, that knowledge of what the best deal is that they can do in that regard. So it's we'll often look back and say, was the pain worth the benefits? And I have no regrets on any of the deals that we've done, but it's been a lot of work to get to closing.
Yeah, I can imagine that's a nice nuance that you brought up. That emotional side, and definitely heard that all of the, just the auditing and the fact checking is going to be the same. Doesn't depend whether it's a larger or smaller company, but then that added nuance of the emotional side of it, I'm sure, can be a tough one.
Absolutely.
So, just kind of finishing up, and one topic I wanted to jump into is, you've had a lot of success on differentiating products that don't have that wow factor. So these, at the beginning, you talked about a lot of the different categories you're in, from hangers to some small kitchen appliances, and I think it was ironing boards and products like that. Are you able to share kind of a strategy with the audience or an example of how you're able to create that differentiation? Because I know it's marketing teams can always push back and say, hey, why are we bringing this in if it's the same as what's out there? And maybe, companies can put a small wrinkle, but at some point, there's just sometimes can't be a lot of innovation on certain products. But it seems like you guys have still been really successful, and it'd be great to kind of hear how.
Yeah, it's funny because you watch Shark Tank, and when you have a picture of an entrepreneur, it's somebody with this phenomenal new product or service that they invented in their garage that's going to change the world. And that's not the majority of ways that this happens. And so many industries are in what most people would consider to be kind of boring areas, but we've always tried to innovate and differentiate in other ways. Today we've got a number of wow products, and I'm incredibly excited about some of the new things that we're going to be coming out with this year and into next year. And we've got a great team coming out with some phenomenal new products. But we've also had a lot of success, as you alluded to, kind of in everyday functional items that have been around for decades and decades. And in that area, we've kind of differentiated through, one is selling e-commerce. When we first started, within our categories, there weren't companies that were drop shipping, and we found that to be a phenomenal niche. And by being able to drop ship a lot of these basic products that nobody else would do, we were able to grow and secure retail customers and get products to consumers that otherwise, that void wouldn't have been filled. So that was a great area. Our retail packaging, we've always felt has been a great differentiator, and also just kind of being broad and deep within our category. From day one, it's been a goal that we could go into a retailer and kind of support their brick and mortar set, whether it's 4 feet, 8 feet, 12 feet, whatever, and have all the different materials and all the different manufacturing processes to fill that entire set. We've got, as an example, hangers made of plastic tubular, of styrene, of wood, of the flocking material, of metal, and garment racks, which are chrome-plated steel, and just having that wide range of different materials and going deep within the subcategories has been a big differentiator.
Yeah, and a lot of it sounds like you guys are really just good on execution. Obviously you're bringing quality products, but you're thinking about strategy, you're thinking about execution, you're making it easy for the buyers and, for them to make their decision and like that example of going deep or being very flexible on the drop shipping and fulfillment. So, and probably a similar link to, you at LDR where you came in and you executed. So I think at least that's how I'm seeing the answer on my end is, obviously you're bringing great products and you guys have, 30 folks over in Asia, engineers and designers and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, it sounds like you got a great brand promise and strategy execution. So
we've made a lot of mistakes to get there.
Wow.
and it cost a lot of money to get there. In order to, just by making what I look back as kind of dumb mistakes and needless mistakes and avoidable mistakes. And, all you can do is learn from them and try not to repeat them and just be better in the future. And I don't want to give the impression that we're the perfect company and that we don't make mistakes today, but I'll be darned if we're going to make a big mistake twice.
Well, good on you for making sure that happens. And really, really quick, as we wrap this up, what has been your biggest mistake? Any single thing that has kind of stood out that folks can learn from?
Yeah, it's and I want to phrase this in the right way. It's because a lot of it ties in with my own, insecurity with my own decisions and just trying to take advice. You go to seminars and you hear smart people say, all right, so you should, a good CEO will listen to their people and get out of their way and let them make the decisions. But a major part of that, if not all of that, depends on you having the right people in place. And if you hire outside consultants, they'll say, oh, well, why are you going to hire a consultant if you don't take their advice? So you should take their advice. And I've been guilty of, and I'm putting the blame on me. These are my mistakes, but of making decisions by hiring the wrong people in the past, and then taking advice, and that's consultants and staff members, including people in key positions. And I want to stress that today we've done much better in that regard, and we've got phenomenal people, and I'll take their advice over my own all day, all night. But I've just made some bad mistakes that have cost us a lot of money over the years, and it's just one is making sure that you have the right people, and I unfortunately have it's taken me too long to realize that we didn't have the right person in the right role, and then it's taken me too long to act on that in the past. So I'll leave it at that, and I've got a list of mistakes that I've made as not as a result, because they're my mistakes, but just by not having the right information or the right guidelines to pursue.
Yeah, and in basketball, the common comment is there's no substitute for height, and I guess in companies there's no substitute for talent. So that's kind of what you're describing there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of that goes with, as you get bigger, you can better afford good people, and good people are more excited to be with a growing company that's performing well. So it's, chicken and the egg type of thing. But it's hard to reach that size and that success without good people.
Yeah, it is absolutely chicken and the egg. And so those smaller companies, it's like all about just getting that initial scale, but they can do it. Companies can do it, when you're still smaller. You don't have to have 200 employees, but you just got to be moving that direction. But it's a great lesson and great way to kind of wrap up this interview. And Steve, Before we finish up here, how can listeners find more about you, learn about you, maybe on LinkedIn, or is there another way?
Yeah, LinkedIn, Steve Greenspon with HoneyCan International. I'm pretty accessible. Sometimes to a fault, being too accessible because I get contact from just about every salesperson with every service that I don't want or don't even understand what it is.
That's funny. I'm guilty of that too. Well, cool. Listen, I want to thank you again, Steve, for being on this episode of the Page One podcast. And also thank the listeners for listening to this episode of the Page One podcast. We truly appreciate your reviews on iTunes and hope you guys join us for the next interview. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Page One podcast with Luke Peters. If you enjoyed this episode, please help us out by leaving us a rating on iTunes. Want to double your online sales? Check out www.retailband.com. And don't forget to join us next week with our next amazing guest.